Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're taking a fascinating journey back in time to explore some of the earliest societies. We're not talking about kings and kingdoms just yet, but about the vibrant and complex world of tribes. Imagine small villages or settlements where everyone is practically family. That's the core of a tribe. Groups of families, often related, living together, sharing their lives and building a community. It's a world where 2 or 3 generations live under the same sky, connected by blood, tradition, and a deep bond with the land they call home. So, how did they live? What did they do all day? Let's dive in and uncover the daily rhythms and rich cultures of these incredible early communities. First up, let's talk about work. In a tribal society, everyone had a role to play to ensure the whole community thrived. Their occupations were deeply connected to nature. Think hunting for game in the forests, gathering edible plants, fruits, and nuts, farming small plots of land, herding animals, and fishing in rivers and lakes. It was a life of self-sufficiency. But what's really interesting is how they divided these tasks. You might be surprised to learn that women handled the bulk of the agricultural work. They were the ones preparing the ground, carefully sowing the seeds, tending to the young plants, and when the time was right, harvesting the grain. It was a cycle of life they nurtured from the earth itself. And it wasn't just the adults who pitched in. Children had important jobs too. They were often the guardians of the crops, spending their days looking after the plants and shooing away any hungry birds or animals that might try to sneak a snack. After the harvest, the work continued for the women. They would thresh the grain to separate it from the stalk, husk it to remove the outer layer, and then grind it into flour. This was the very foundation of their meals, a testament to their hard work and knowledge of the land. It's a powerful image, isn't it? The entire community working in sync with the seasons to provide for one another. So, if women were primarily in the fields, what were the men up to? Men usually took on the role of pasture. They were responsible for leading the large herds of animals, like cattle or goats, in search of fresh pasture. This was no small task. It often meant traveling long distances, navigating different terrains, and protecting the herd from predators. Their lives were nomadic in a sense, always on the move to find the best grazing spots for their precious livestock. Meanwhile, children who were a bit older might be tasked with looking after smaller flocks. Learning the skills of herding from a young age was a hands-on education in responsibility and animal husbandry. But life wasn't all strictly divided. There were many tasks where men and women worked side by side, showcasing a real partnership. The cleaning of the animals and the daily milking, for example, were often shared duties. This collaboration was essential for maintaining the health and productivity of their herds. And it didn't stop there. The creativity and craftsmanship of the tribe were also a joint effort. Both women and men would get their hands dirty, making essential items like pots for cooking and storage, weaving intricate baskets, crafting tools from stone, wood, or bone, and building the very huts they lived in. Canework really did make the dream work in these societies. Life wasn't all work and no play, of course. Tribal communities had incredibly rich and unique cultural traditions. This is where their spirit and identity truly shone. They had their own languages, distinct musical styles, and a treasure trove of stories and paintings passed down through generations. These weren't just hobbies. They were the fabric of their society. Singing, dancing, and decorating their huts were communal activities that brought everyone together. It was a way to celebrate, to mourn, to tell their history, and to connect with each other on a deeper level. They also had their own spiritual beliefs, with gods and goddesses who watched over them, the harvest, and the hunt. Now, let's talk about leadership. Tribe societies didn't have kings or presidents in the way we think of them today. Instead, leadership was often more informal and based on respect. Some men were regarded as leaders, but they earned this status through different means. A leader might be an old and experienced elder whose wisdom was valued by the community. He could also be a young, brave warrior who had proven his courage, a way priest who acted as a bridge to the spiritual world. It wasn't about absolute power, but about guidance and influence. And respect wasn't just reserved for men. Old women were highly respected for their wisdom and life experience. Their knowledge of agriculture, medicine, and family traditions was invaluable to the tribe's survival and well-being. Perhaps the most profound difference between tribal societies and many others that came later lies in their concept of ownership. For a tribe, the true wealth wasn't gold or jewels. It was the land itself. The forests, the grasslands, the rivers and streams, all of these were considered the collective property of the entire tribe. There was no my land versus your land. Everybody shared and used these resources together. This fundamental principle had a huge impact on their social structure. Because resources were shared, there were no sharp differences between the rich and the poor. Everyone had access to what they needed to survive. It was a system built on cooperation and community, a stark contrast to the hierarchies and inequalities that would define many later civilizations. So let's do a quick recap of who did what. The men's primary roles were often leading the large herds to pasture and hunting. The women were the agricultural experts, handling everything from sowing seeds to grinding grain. They were the primary farmers. And what about the kids? They were the little protectors of the crops and also helped manage smaller animal flocks. But remember, it wasn't a rigid system. Both men and women shared tasks like milking the animals, cleaning them, and creating all the essentials for daily life, from pottery and baskets to the tools and huts they used. And, of course, everyone joined in the cultural celebrations of singing, dancing, and art. This way of life, so deeply intertwined with nature and community, offers us a powerful glimpse into our shared human past. It reminds us of a time when the world was viewed not as something to be owned, but as something to be shared. A time when the well-being of the group was paramount, and everyone, from the youngest child to the wisest elder, had a vital role to play. It's a different model of society, one built on interdependence and a shared identity. Studying these early tribes helps us understand the incredible diversity of human culture and the different ways we've reorganized ourselves throughout history. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of tribal life. It's a huge topic, and we've only just scratched the surface, but I hope it gave you a new perspective on these fascinating early societies. What part of their life did you find most interesting? Let me know down in the comments. I love reading your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next journey into the past. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.